Hello everyone, and welcome to my advanced tutorial for the Sword and Shield. This is part 2 of my 3-part series on how to become a Master Sword and Shield Hunter. For this video, I will assume you are familiar with the basic combos. If you are not, I've linked my beginner's tutorial in the description section. Today I will teach you all the advanced techniques that allow you to take control of the hunt, support your fellow hunters, and make you more efficient. First, we'll go over a good gameplay loop. Along the way, I'll explain some of the advanced tips. Then I'll talk about the different armor builds you can make and how they influence the combos you'll use. Lastly, I'll go over some more tips and techniques. I'll put timestamps in the description for you to skip to the part you're interested in. Let's begin with a good gameplay loop. By the time you reach the monster, you should have gathered pods. What you usually want to do is throw a pod to the ground, which distracts the monster enough to allow you to clutch onto its face. Using the claw attack reorients the monster and stops its animation. It's faster than the flinch shot, therefore often allowing you to prevent the monster from roaring altogether. After having reoriented the monster, you perform a flinch shot. Don't stress too much if the monster isn't perfectly directed towards the wall, as most of the time they are automatically attracted to the nearest obstacle. At this point you want to weaken the area you'll be hitting. To do that, you can do 2 clutch mount attacks, or perform a Claryuken into a clutched attack with Y. Now the head of the monster is weakened. It can still be flinch shot, so pick up the pod that fell after your first clutched attack and find an opportunity to do another flinch shot. Then is the time to make it hurt. Get to the weak spot and focus all of your hits on this part. For an advanced player, I recommend hitting a bit before doing a perfect rush combo. After 2 flinch shots, the monster enrages. You have 2 main choices. You can sneak some hits in between the monster's attack, or try to mount. To mount, you can do ledge attacks, which are very effective, sliding attacks, those are also good, but the animation is long and it's hard to aim. You can do an advancing slash towards the wall that you can run on, which will make you perform a special mounting attack called Helmbreaker. It's very strong and the quickest way to mount if you have the opportunity to use it. And finally you can do a backstep into a rising slash to a jump attack. This way to mount is risky because of how long the animations are, but it's the only way that you always have at your disposal, no matter the terrain. Once mounted, if you have pods that stun the monster you're fighting, you can fire those to shorten the duration of the mount. If you look at the minimap, you'll see a white ring around it. This is an indicator for how close the monster is to falling. The white part gradually diminishes when you hit the monster enough and trigger a flinch animation, or when it crashes into a wall. When you can do the finishing mounted attack, you have to press the Y button 3 times. The first 2 hits are shield hits, and the last one is a sword hit. This makes the monster falls down quickly. However, if you want to maximize your damage and possibly stun the monster, here is what you do. Move your character to the head of the monster and bash it. After 2 hits of the shield, stop hitting for half a second, or hold on to the monster with the right trigger and repeat. From here, you continue the fight as usual, doing the basic combos as described in my beginner's tutorial video until the monster is out of range. Then, you repeat those actions. Let's now talk about the builds and the combos that will allow you to maximize your DPS. As an aside, I want to emphasize that many different builds are possible and viable. Support skills and even defensive skills can reduce your hunt times depending on the context. A dead hunter loses a lot of DPS, and 3 cards makes you lose the hunt, and possibly makes you waste other people's time. So be smart about your build. That said, let's go over 2 raw builds. The first is a basic meta build. Thanks Honey for the set builder over at honeyhunterworld.com. This set, as all the others I'll show in this video, uses weakness exploit to get 50% affinity from a limited investment cost. This 50% affinity boost is only valid as long as we hit a weak spot that has been weakened. That's not much of a problem with the sword and shield. Then, we use critical eye to get 30 to 40% more affinity. Once we have 100% affinity, we crit every time we hit a weak spot, so critical boost just makes sense. These 3 skills maxed out gives a 40% damage increase. We use Agitator, Attack Boost, and Peak Performance to improve our raw, basically our attack. I'll spare you the details of the damage formula in this video. I recommend checking out the Monster Hunter math guys on YouTube. They did quite a lot of educational videos on the math behind just about everything. Very interesting if you're into nerdy stuff, as I am. We then have Health Boost and Evade Window. Health Boost level 3 gives 33% more health, assuming you hit for 50 more health, which you should, and is arguably the best defensive skill. Evade Window synergizes positively with the sword and shield, with which you want to dodge attacks quite often. Don't forget the flinch-free decoration that allows you to not get flinched when other players hit you. Last and maybe least is the set bonus, Master's Touch, that prevents your sharpness from diminishing when you crit. This build is a bit atypical, as I only use decorations that I have on the PC currently. It's accessible once you hit MR 70. The next build I want to show is a Frostcraft build that you'll be able to get early on and that will carry you to the end of the endgame. The weapon you use with this set will change as you improve your master rank. First, you probably want to use Velkhana's sword and shield, then perhaps Lunatic Rose, if Safi is not in rotation, and finally a Safi Jiva sword and shield. For these raw sets, you want to use the combos that get you the biggest numbers. Usually it will be the Perfect Rush combo and the Falling Bash combo. The following 2 sets are elemental focused. The first set applies massive elemental damage on crits. It works well when you can continuously damage the elemental weak spot of a monster. For this style of gameplay, you want to use infinite combos such as the YYBB combo or Infinite Spiral Slash combo. Pause if you want to get a closer look. The last set I want to show is a mix between Frostcraft and an elemental build. This build can do a lot of things quite well, but the gems required to make it are hard to get. Why Frostcraft? Frostcraft adds a gauge that recharges when you sheath your weapon. When the gauge is full, you'll get a massive damage increase that diminishes as the meter empties. To completely fill up the gauge, your weapon has to be sheathed for about 3 seconds. The idea is to slightly tweak your gameplay to maximize this gauge. You want to run as much as possible, which will automatically sheath your weapon and doesn't slow you down much. When you clutch onto a monster, you will automatically sheath and restore the gauge. Any mounts will completely fill your meter. If you follow these tips, your gauge will often be full and you'll get a massive damage increase. We've reached the final part of the video where I'll talk about some tips and techniques. When a monster roars, you can dodge it by doing a backstep. The invulnerability of the backstep is quite good. Once you have the muscle memory, it's not too hard to do. You can also dodge regular attacks with that, and go into various attacks depending on the context, but this will be for the Master's Guide. The next tips are all linked to the Clutch Claw and the new moves. The one that I feel is the most important, but is so often overlooked, is the following. When a monster takes enough damage, it gets into a drooling state that has been called Clagger. I call it KB for knocked back. This state has been made to give a safe opportunity to use the Clutch Claw. It lasts as long as the longest Clutch Claw attack, about 6 or 7 seconds. However, if you do clutch onto the monster during that time, this timer is refreshed to allow your attack. Meaning, if you clutch at the right time, you can give a 6 to 7 seconds of free DPS to all your teammates, for a total of 12 to 14 seconds of stun. Besides this special animation, if you can't find an opening to clutch onto a monster, you can possibly make one. The best way is to use a bomb pod. The stun it creates usually lasts long enough to get onto the head, to do a flinch shot or a clutched attack. With the new slinger burst move and red pods, you can stop the monster dead in its tracks to do the first part of the perfect rush combo and possibly even the whole combo. Be mindful that some monsters don't get flinched by certain pods and that you can't continuously stun a monster with the same pod. The flash pod have been nerfed in Iceborne, but you can interrupt some of the nastier animations and make flying monster fall with a flash pod, to possibly combo into a perfect rush. That's it for this video, thank you for watching. In the third and last video, I'll explain some of the hardest techniques to master, the minute details that can make a big difference, and some of the knowledge and tools you can use to be a master hunter with the sword and shield. I will see you then.